Imagine discovering your bridesmaid deliberately destroyed your $8,500 wedding dress the night before your ceremony. For Layla, this wasn't hypothetical, it was reality. When her jealous cousin Sophia accidentally spilled red wine on her dress, most people would panic or confront her in tears. But our guest chose strategy instead. I'm Eliza, and today on Wedding Day Justice, we're exploring how one bride's meticulous contingency planning transformed a malicious sabotage into the perfect opportunity for 200 witnesses to see the truth unfold. Sometimes the backup plan becomes the masterpiece.
Thank you, Eliza. I'm sharing this story because I want other brides to know that preparation isn't paranoia, sometimes it's protection. As a wedding planner, I've seen countless disasters, but never expected to need my professional skills for my own ceremony. Let me tell you what happened. As I stood in my childhood bedroom the night before my wedding, I traced my fingers over the lace of my backup wedding dress hanging in the closet. Most brides have a single gown for their special day, but I had prepared two, and for good reason. My name is Layla Ahmadi, and tomorrow I would marry Marcus, my partner of 5 years. Our wedding represented not just the union of two people, but the blending of cultures, my Persian heritage with his American traditions. We had planned a small, private Persian ceremony in the morning, followed by a larger American-style celebration in the afternoon at Rosewood Gardens, a stunning venue overlooking the bay that had cost us nearly $15,000 for just 6 hours. The main ceremony would host 175 guests, with a 5-course dinner featuring both Persian and American cuisine that had required months of tastings to perfect. Our cake, a 4-tier masterpiece with gold leaf and hand-painted details inspired by Persian miniature art, had cost $2,400 alone. Every detail had been meticulously planned, from the custom calligraphy on the place cards to the specific shade of blue hydrangeas that would complement the bridesmaids' dresses. But beyond the material details, this wedding carried the weight of my family's expectations. My grandmother had sewn delicate beadwork onto my veil by hand, despite her arthritis. My father, who had worked 2 jobs when we first immigrated to give me opportunities he never had been saving for this day since I was born. I could still remember him slipping small amounts into a special account even when money was tight, whispering to my mother in Farsi that someday his daughter would have the wedding of her dreams. I had always been known in my family as the planner, the one who thought 3 steps ahead. My mother joked that I came out of the womb with a checklist. This tendency had served me well in my career as an event coordinator, and I'd applied all my professional skills to planning my own wedding. But my meticulous nature wasn't just about perfection, it was about protection. Because despite the joy surrounding our wedding, there was one complication: my cousin Sophia. Sophia and I had grown up together, only 3 months apart in age. As children, we were inseparable, but as we entered our teens, something shifted. My academic achievements, my career success, even my relationship with Marcus, each milestone seemed to trigger a darkness in her. What began as subtle competitiveness evolved into something more insidious over the years. When I announced my engagement, Sophia's congratulations came with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. When I asked her to be a bridesmaid, duty-bound by family expectations, she accepted with a performance of enthusiasm that felt hollow. Throughout the planning process, there were small incidents, suggestions that undermined my choices, accidental wine spills on sample fabrics during dress fittings, appointments mysteriously canceled because someone had called the vendor claiming to be me. None of these things could be definitively traced back to Sophia, but the pattern was clear to me. My mother urged understanding. She's family, Layla June. Perhaps she's just jealous because she hasn't found her person yet. My father, more pragmatic, suggested I keep her close but watched. Trust, but verify, he said in Farsi, an old expression that had guided him through business dealings for decades. So I did both. I kept Sophia involved, maintained the peace for family harmony, but I also prepared contingencies for every aspect of the wedding that she might touch. The most important contingency was hanging in my closet now, an elegant, simpler backup wedding dress that only my mother and maid of honor knew about. "You're being paranoid," my best friend Yasmin had said when I purchased it, but she helped me hide it anyway. But I suppose it's better to be safe than sorry. The other crucial precaution was more technological. The bridal suite at Rosewood Gardens was equipped with security cameras. A standard feature that the venue manager had mentioned was installed after an incident with stolen property a few years back. When I learned this, I made a point to confirm the cameras were functional and to understand exactly what areas they covered. The venue assured me the footage was only accessed if needed and deleted after 30 days. Just making sure everything's covered for insurance purposes, I had explained casually to the venue coordinator, who nodded approvingly at my thoroughness. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "One more sleep until forever. I love you." I smiled, feeling a moment of pure happiness break through my anxiety. Tomorrow would be perfect, not because every detail would go as planned. I was realistic enough to know that was impossible, but because at the end of the day, I would be married to the love of my life. As I was about to reply, another text came through, this one from Sophia. "Can't wait to see you in your dress tomorrow. It's going to be unforgettable." I stared at the message, a chill running down my spine despite the warmth of my childhood room. Something in the wording felt off, like a threat disguised as excitement. I typed back a simple "thanks, see you tomorrow," complete with a heart emoji, maintaining the facade of cousinly affection. Then I checked, for the third time that evening, that my backup dress was perfectly steamed, that the security camera feeds were accessible from my phone if needed, and that I had backup copies of our vows stored in 3 different places. Some might call it paranoia. I called it preparation. What I didn't know then was how essential this preparation would prove to be, and how the next 24 hours would test not just my planning abilities, but my capacity for grace under the most trying circumstances. The morning of my wedding day dawned with golden light streaming through my childhood bedroom window. I woke before my alarm, my heart already racing with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. Today was the day I would become Marcus's wife. Twice, actually. First in the intimate Persian ceremony that would take place in my parents' garden at 10 a.m., and then in the larger American-style ceremony at Rosewood Gardens at 4 p.m. I padded downstairs to find my mother already in the kitchen, brewing tea and preparing a traditional breakfast spread. The house smelled of freshly baked Nooni Sangek bread and brewing saffron tea. "Sab Beker, Layla June," my mother said, kissing both my cheeks. "Did you sleep?" "A little," I admitted, accepting the cup of tea she pressed into my hands. The familiar aroma of cardamom and rose water was comforting, a constant throughout my life's biggest moments. "Your grandmother's sofreh agd is ready in the garden," she said, referring to the traditional Persian wedding spread that had been in our family for generations. She stayed up until midnight arranging everything. I stepped out into the garden and gasped. The sofreh agd was more beautiful than I had imagined, a low table covered in a hand-embroidered cloth, adorned with symbols of fertility, sweetness, and light. Mirror work reflected the morning sunlight, sending prisms dancing across the grass. Candelabras, a copy of the Quran, crystallized sugar, decorated eggs, almonds, walnuts, and hazelnuts in intricate patterns. Each item carried symbolic meaning for our marriage. At the center was the most precious item, my grandmother's turme, a hand-woven cloth that had been present at weddings in our family for 4 generations. "It's perfect," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. My grandmother appeared beside me, her small frame still regal despite her 82 years. "This is how my mother prepared it for me," she said in Farsi, her voice wavering slightly. "And how her mother prepared it for her. Now, it welcomes you and Marcus into the chain of our family." I embraced her, careful not to crush her delicate frame. "Thank you, Ma'am and Bozorg." The morning ceremony was intimate. Only 30 close family members gathered in the garden. Marcus arrived with his parents, looking handsome and slightly nervous in his tailored suit. His mother, who had diligently attended Persian cultural appreciation classes with us, wore a beautiful blue headscarf out of respect. As we sat before the sofreh agd, my grandmother held a scarf of fine white silk over our heads, while female relatives took turns grinding sugar cones over us, symbolizing showering our life with sweetness. I caught Marcus's eye as we held a mirror before us. Tradition says the first person you see in the mirror will be the one you spend your life with. "Hello forever," he whispered to me, and I felt my heart expand. When we exchanged our vows in both Farsi and English, I heard my father stifle a sob. This man who had worked so hard, who had left everything familiar behind to give me opportunities, was watching his daughter honor both her heritage and her future. The moment was perfect in its simplicity and depth. As the ceremony concluded, family members approached to offer blessings and gifts. When Sophia stepped forward, I felt myself tense slightly. "Beautiful ceremony, cousin," she said, embracing me. She was impeccably dressed in a designer outfit that seemed slightly too formal for the morning gathering. "But the real show is this afternoon, isn't it? When everyone will see you in that amazing dress." Something in her tone made my skin prickle, but I smiled graciously. Both ceremonies are meaningful in their own way. "Of course," she replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I'm heading to Rosewood early to help set up the bridal suite. As your bridesmaid, I want everything to be perfect for you." Alarm bells rang in my mind. This was not the plan. The bridal party was supposed to meet at the venue at 1 p.m. "That's not necessary," I said carefully. "The venue staff has everything under control." "Nonsense," she insisted, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "What kind of cousin would I be if I didn't help? Besides, Aunt Mina already gave me the key to drop off your dress and accessories." I glanced at my mother, who nodded apologetically. In the joy of the morning ceremony, she had forgotten our concerns about Sophia. "Your dress is too beautiful to stay folded in its bag all morning," Sophia continued. "It should be hanging properly, being admired. I'll make sure everything is perfect." Before I could formulate a response that wouldn't cause a scene, my father's sister interrupted, pulling Sophia into a conversation about her recent promotion. I used the moment to pull my mother aside. "Mammon, I don't trust her near my dress," I whispered urgently. My mother squeezed my hand. "What can she do in a venue full of staff? The security cameras are there, remember? And you have your backup. Today is about joy, not suspicion." I nodded, trying to calm my racing thoughts. She was right. I had prepared for this possibility. The backup dress was already at Yasmin's house, and she would bring it directly to the venue. The security cameras in the bridal suite would capture anything untoward. I had done everything I could to protect this day. "Layla," Marcus called, waving me over to where he stood with his parents. "My mom wants a photo of us by the soffre." I pushed my concerns aside and went to join my new family, determined not to let anxiety overshadow the joy of this day. As Marcus's arms slipped around my waist, I leaned into his solid presence. "Everything okay?" he murmured, always attuned to my moods. "Everything's perfect," I said, and in that moment with him beside me it was true. What I didn't know then was that across town, Sophia was already arriving at Rosewood Gardens, my carefully selected wedding dress in tow, and the real test of my preparation was about to begin. By 1:30 p.m., the bridal suite at Rosewood Gardens hummed with activity. My bridesmaids, Yasmin, my two cousins from my father's side, and Marcus's sister Ellie, were arranging makeup, accessories, and champagne. Music played softly from someone's phone, and nervous excitement filled the air. Everyone except Sophia, who had texted to say she was running late after her early setup help. I tried to focus on the joy of the moment rather than my nagging concern about what Sophia might have been doing alone in the bridal suite. Yasmin caught my eye and gave me a reassuring nod. She had my backup dress safely stashed in her car, just in case. "Time to get you into that gorgeous gown," my mother announced, clapping her hands. "Where did Sophia hang it?" We moved to the adjoining dressing room, a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and elegant lighting designed to make brides look their best. My heart stopped when I saw my wedding dress. It hung majestically from a satin-padded hanger, exactly as I had dreamed, the hand-beaded bodice catching the light, the delicate lace overlay cascading down to a chapel-length train. The dress had cost $8,500, a splurge that had made me feel guilty until I saw how my father's eyes had welled with tears at my final fitting. "You look like a queen, Layla June," he had whispered. But as I approached the dress now, something felt wrong. There was a faint smell in the air, something familiar but out of place. "Is that wine?" Yasmin asked, her brow furrowing. My stomach dropped as I gently turned the dress. There, spreading across the back of the skirt and train, was a massive dark red stain. Cabernet Sauvignon, if I had to guess, the exact varietal Sophia preferred. No, 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 my mother gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. How could this happen? The room fell silent as everyone stared at the ruined gown. I reached out with trembling fingers to touch the fabric. The stain was still slightly damp. This had happened recently. Very recently. It must have been an accident, one of my cousins offered weakly. An accident? Yasmin repeated incredulously. In a bridal suite with no red wine opened until we arrived. I stood frozen, staring at the destruction of something that had represented so much, not just the dress itself, but what it symbolized. My parents' pride. My heritage, honored in the subtle Persian-inspired beadwork I had specially requested. The moment Marcus would first see me walking down the aisle. The door to the suite burst open, and Sophia entered, breathless and flushed. Sorry I'm late, traffic was a nightmare and, she stopped abruptly, taking in the scene before her. Oh my God, what happened to your dress? The performance was almost perfect, the widened eyes, the hand clasped to her chest in shock. But I caught the slight twitch at the corner of her mouth, the ghost of satisfaction she couldn't quite suppress. You tell me, Sophia, I said quietly. You were the only one here with it. She gasped, the picture of indignation. Are you accusing me? I hung it up carefully and left. Maybe one of the venue staff came in, or maybe it was already damaged when you brought it. It was perfect when it arrived, my mother said, her voice uncharacteristically hard. I checked it myself before giving it to you. Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly before she composed her features into a mask of sympathy. This is terrible, but we can fix this. Maybe if we blow dry it, or use some club soda. Club soda won't remove a wine stain this size, and you know it, Yasmin snapped. Tension filled the room as everyone realized what was happening. This was no accident. This was sabotage. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in less than 2 hours. Guests would already be arriving soon. My father would be devastated. Marcus would be waiting for me at the altar, expecting to see me in the dress I had described to him in excited detail, without revealing too much, of course. Layla, my mother's voice was gentle but worried. What do we do? I opened my eyes and looked directly at Sophia, whose expression now flickered between false concern and barely concealed triumph. In that moment, I made a decision. Yasmin, I said calmly, please get the other dress from your car. Confusion crossed Sophia's face. Other dress? What other dress? Yasmin was already moving, a small smile playing on her lips. On it. You had a backup dress, Sophia asked, her voice rising slightly. Why would you have a backup dress? I turned to face her fully, keeping my voice steady. Because I know you, Sophia. I've always known you. The color drained from her face, but she quickly recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just as upset about this as everyone else. More upset. As your bridesmaid and cousin, I... Save it, I interrupted, surprising even myself with my composure. We don't have time for this now. We have a wedding to prepare for. Yasmin returned moments later with a garment bag, unzipping it to reveal my second dress. A sleeker, more modern design with subtle beading and a silhouette that hugged my curves before flaring gently at the knees. It wasn't the princess ball gown I had originally chosen, but it was beautiful in its own right. You came prepared for this, Sophia sputtered, her facade cracking. You didn't trust me. Would you have trusted you? Yasmin countered, helping me remove the ruined gown from its hanger. My mother stepped between them, ever the peacemaker. What's done is done. We focus now on making Layla beautiful for her ceremony. As the others helped me into the second dress, I caught sight of Sophia's reflection in the mirror. She stood apart from the group, her expression a complex mixture of anger and confusion. Her plan had failed, and she didn't understand how. You should leave, Ellie said firmly to Sophia. As Marcus's sister, she had no family obligation to be polite. I'm a bridesmaid, Sophia protested. I can't just... You can and you will, my mother interrupted, her voice like steel beneath silk. Go sit with the other guests. We will discuss this tomorrow. For a moment, it seemed Sophia might argue, but something in my mother's expression stopped her. With a huff, she gathered her things and stalked out, pausing at the door. I didn't do anything to your precious dress, she said coldly, but I'm sorry you think so little of me that you'd believe I could. The door slammed behind her, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Should we call security?" Ellie asked. "Have her removed from the venue entirely?" I shook my head as Yasmin zipped up my backup dress. "No, that would only create more drama, and this day isn't about Sophia, it's about Marcus and me." As I turned to see myself in the mirror, a strange calm settled over me. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting my figure in ways the original gown wouldn't have. My mother stepped behind me, carefully arranging my grandmother's veil over my hair. "You look beautiful, Layla June," she whispered, meeting my eyes in the reflection. "Perhaps even more beautiful than you would have in the other dress." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for my foresight and for the loving support surrounding me. Everything happens for a reason, right? What Sophia didn't know, what none of them knew except Yasmin, was that I had one more contingency plan in place. Before leaving the bridal suite, I discreetly checked my phone, accessing the security camera footage from earlier that day. There it was, clear as day. Sophia, alone in the room, deliberately pouring a glass of red wine down the back of my wedding dress, then carefully arranging it to hide the damage from immediate view. Her face as she did it was illuminated with pure malice, a smile of satisfaction spreading across her features as she whispered something to herself. I forwarded the clip to Marcus with a brief message explaining what had happened and what I planned to do about it. His response came back immediately. "I love you. Let's serve some justice with our wedding cake." I smiled, tucking my phone away. Sophia thought she had won by ruining my dress. She had no idea that she had just written herself into our wedding ceremony in a way she never intended. The gardens at Rosewood were transformed into something magical by the late afternoon light. Rows of white chairs, adorned with blue hydrangeas, lined either side of a white carpet aisle. At the end stood a floral arch intertwined with fairy lights that would twinkle as dusk approached during our reception. The string quartet played softly as 175 guests found their seats, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of roses and anticipation. From my hiding spot inside the venue, I could see Marcus standing at the altar, handsome in his tailored navy suit. He was speaking quietly with his best man, his expression a mixture of excitement and what looked like barely suppressed amusement. He knew what was coming. I scanned the crowd and spotted Sophia seated in the front row with my extended family. She had changed into a red dress that was slightly too formal for a garden wedding, her expression smug as she whispered something to her father, my Uncle Darius. I felt a momentary pang, not of regret, but of sadness for what our relationship could have been if jealousy hadn't poisoned it. "Are you ready?" my father asked, appearing at my side in his finest suit, the one he reserved for only the most important occasions. His eyes were already misty. "I am," I said, taking his arm, "more than ready." "Your dress," he said, looking me over. "It's different from the one you showed us." I hesitated, not wanting to upset him with the truth right before our walk down the aisle. I decided this one suited the garden setting better. He studied my face, the wisdom of his 68 years allowing him to see beyond my words. "Whatever happened, you look beautiful, Layla June, like a queen still." The music changed, signaling the start of the procession. My bridesmaids, now minus Sophia, lined up ahead of us. Yasmin, as maid of honor, gave my hand a final squeeze before taking her place at the front. "Remember," she whispered, "this is your moment, enjoy it." As the first bridesmaid began her walk, I took a deep breath and centered myself. Despite the drama, despite Sophia's attempt to derail my day, I was about to marry the love of my life. And justice, sweet, undeniable justice, was carefully prepared in the AV system, ready to be served at exactly the right moment. When our turn came, my father and I stepped onto the white carpet. A collective murmur rose from the guests, appreciation for the bride, as is traditional, but perhaps also surprise at my different dress. I kept my eyes forward, focused on Marcus, whose face broke into a radiant smile as he saw me. I was vaguely aware of Sophia's expression changing as I passed her row, confusion, then realization, then barely concealed anger as she understood that her sabotage had failed. But I didn't give her the satisfaction of acknowledgement. This walk, this moment, was about Marcus and me. Reaching the altar, my father kissed my cheek and placed my hand in Marcus's, a gesture centuries old yet still powerful. Marcus squeezed my fingers gently, his eyes saying everything his voice could not in that moment. "You look incredible," he whispered as we turned to face the officiant. "Plan B suits you." I smiled, feeling truly happy despite everything. "Wait until you see Plan C." The ceremony proceeded beautifully. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, and the blending of cultures that our union represented. My cousin Mina read a poem by Rumi in both Farsi and English. Marcus's brother played a brief piece on the violin that left few dry eyes in the audience. Then came the moment for our vows. We had decided to write our own, another blend of tradition and personalization. Marcus went first, his voice strong and sure as he promised to stand by me, to honor my heritage alongside his own, to build a life of joy and meaning together. When my turn came, I took both his hands in mine and looked directly into his eyes. "Marcus, my love, my partner, my home," I began, following the vows we had rehearsed. "I come to you today with an open heart and a soul that recognizes yours across time and space." I continued through my prepared words, speaking of love and commitment, of dreams shared and challenges faced together. Then, as we had planned via text just hours earlier, I deviated from the script. "Before we complete our vows, there's something I need to address," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the garden. "Today has been a journey of both joy and challenge." A murmur of confusion rippled through the guests. Marcus squeezed my hands encouragingly. In Persian culture, we have a saying, "The same hand that cuts can heal." It means that sometimes the source of pain can also be the path to resolution. Today, someone tried to take away a moment of joy from us. I turned slightly, looking directly at Sophia, whose face had frozen in a mask of feigned innocence. "Sophia, my cousin, whom I've loved since childhood, I know it was you who deliberately ruined my wedding dress this afternoon." Gasps and whispers erupted from the guests. Sophia stood abruptly, her face flushing. "How dare you accuse me at your wedding? I would never." "Actually," Marcus interrupted smoothly, nodding to his best man, who pressed a button on a remote, "we don't need to rely on accusations." The large screen that had been set up to display a photo montage during the reception suddenly illuminated. The video was crystal clear. Sophia in the bridal suite, carefully checking that she was alone before removing a small bottle of wine from her purse. The footage showed her deliberately pouring it down the back of my dress, her face alight with malicious pleasure. The audio captured her whispered words with perfect clarity. "Enjoy your perfect day now, cousin." The garden fell completely silent as the video played. I watched Sophia's face drain of color, her eyes darting around as she realized there was no escape from the evidence. Her father, beside her, stared at the screen in shock and dismay. "Security cameras," I explained to the stunned audience, my voice gentle despite the circumstances. "Standard at Rosewood Gardens, as the venue manager will confirm." Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "It was just a joke," she finally stammered. I was going to tell you before you put it on." "Sophia, that's enough," her father said sharply, standing and taking her arm. The shame on his face was palpable. "We're leaving, now." "But uncle," she protested. "Now," he repeated, his voice brooking no argument. He turned to me, anguish in his eyes. "Layla June Marcus, I have no words. Please forgive our family for this disgrace." As they made their way down the aisle, guests shifting uncomfortably to let them pass, I turned back to Marcus and the officiant. "I apologize for the interruption," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "But I believe in truth, even on days meant for celebration, perhaps especially then." I took a deep breath, centering myself again, and continued with my vows where I had left off. "Marcus, I promise to face all of life's challenges with the same strength and grace we've shown today. I promise to be your partner in joy and in difficulty, to create a home filled with laughter, honesty, and love." As I completed my vows, a different kind of silence had fallen over the garden. Not the shocked silence of scandal, but the deeper quiet of witnessing something authentic and powerful. When we exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, the applause that erupted felt like a validation not just of our union, but of our handling of a difficult situation with dignity. Marcus kissed me with a tenderness that made my heart swell, whispering against my lips. That was both terrifying and the most impressive thing I've ever seen. I laughed softly. Welcome to marriage. Sometimes you have to handle unexpected situations. As we turned to face our guests as a married couple, I caught sight of my father. Rather than being upset by the disruption, he was looking at me with unmistakable pride. He nodded once, a gesture that said everything. You handled this with strength and grace. You are truly your own woman now. We proceeded back down the aisle together, husband and wife, as the string quartet played triumphantly. The path before us seemed to glow in the late afternoon light, symbolic of the future we would build together, one where we faced challenges head-on, where we stood up for truth, and where we never let anyone diminish our joy. What had begun as an attempt to ruin our wedding had instead become one of its most powerful moments. As we reached the end of the aisle, guests already rising to follow us to the reception, I whispered to Marcus, "I think I need a glass of champagne." "Definitely," he agreed, his arm secure around my waist, "but maybe not red wine." Our laughter, spontaneous and free, rose into the perfect blue sky above Rosewood Gardens. It was, I realized, the sound of victory, not over Sophia, but over bitterness itself. We had refused to let malice steal our joy, and in doing so, had made our wedding day even more memorable than we could have imagined. The reception was in full swing as twilight descended over Rosewood Gardens. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, casting a magical glow over the dance floor where guests moved to the music of the live band. The 5-course dinner had been served, a perfect fusion of Persian and American cuisine that had guests raving, and the cake cutting was scheduled for 30 minutes from now. I stood at the edge of the dance floor, watching Marcus spin his grandmother in a gentle waltz, her face alight with joy despite her 90 years. My heart felt so full it might burst. After the drama of the ceremony, the celebration had taken on an almost euphoric quality, as if everyone was determined to make this night unforgettable for all the right reasons. "The woman of the hour," came a voice beside me. I turned to find Yasmin offering me a glass of champagne. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Newly Minted Wife?" I accepted the glass with a smile. Surprisingly peaceful, actually. "After that showdown, I'd have expected you to be riding an adrenaline high for days." She clinked her glass against mine. "To the most badass bride I've ever seen." I laughed, taking a sip of the crisp champagne. "I didn't set out to create drama." "No, but you handled it perfectly. Not too vengeful, not too doormat. Why justice, served cold and clear." Yasmin's expression grew more serious. "Have you heard from Sophia or Uncle Darius?" I shook my head. "Not directly. My mother said Aunt Layla called to apologize profusely. Apparently, they're having a family meeting tomorrow to discuss Sophia's behavior. This wasn't the first incident, just the most public." "Good, she needs consequences." Yasmin watched the dancers for a moment before adding, "You know, your backup dress is actually stunning on you. The way it moves when you dance, it's like it was made for you." "Maybe it was," I mused. "Maybe some things work out exactly as they're meant to, even when they don't work out as planned." A familiar figure approached us. My father, looking distinguished in his suit, his usual serious expression softened by the evening's celebrations. "May I steal my daughter for a dance?" he asked Yasmin, who bowed dramatically and stepped aside. As we moved onto the dance floor, my father held me with the careful respect he'd always shown, leading confidently but gently. "I am very proud of you, Layla June," he said in Farsi, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Not just for today, but for who you have become." "Even with the drama during the ceremony?" I asked, switching to Farsi as well. It had always been our language for the most important conversations. "Especially because of that," he replied. "When I left Iran with your mother, carrying you as just a small baby, I feared many things. I feared you would grow up without knowing your heritage, that America would erase our ways. I feared you would face hardship because of your name, your background. But most of all, I feared you would not have the strength to stand up for yourself in a world that can be unkind." He twirled me gently before continuing. "Today, you showed the perfect balance. You defended yourself with evidence and truth, not accusations. You did not allow someone to harm you without consequence, but neither did you seek revenge. You were strong but not cruel. This is the daughter I hope to raise." Tears pricked at my eyes. My father had always been a man of few words, expressing his love through actions rather than declarations. This speech was perhaps the most he had ever shared of his hopes for me. "I learned it from you and Mammon," I said softly. "You both showed me how to navigate between worlds, how to honor tradition while embracing change." He nodded, a rare smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "And now you and Marcus will create your own traditions, your own way forward." As the song ended, Marcus appeared at our side, respectfully waiting for my father to complete our dance. "May I cut in?" he asked, the formality in his voice betrayed by the twinkle in his eye. My father placed my hand in Marcus's, just as he had during the ceremony. "Take care of each other," he said simply, before stepping back to allow my new husband to sweep me into his arms. "Your father seems pleased," Marcus observed as we moved to the rhythm of a slower song. I was a bit worried he might be upset about the, unexpected addition to our ceremony. "Quite the opposite," I assured him. He appreciated how we handled it. "We make a good team," Marcus said, pulling me closer. "Though I hope our future challenges are a bit less dramatic." "No promises," I teased, "but at least you know I come prepared." He laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest against mine. "That you do. Backup dress, security footage, you're like a wedding day Batman." "Speaking of the footage," I said, glancing toward the AV setup, "do you think we were too harsh, exposing her like that?" Marcus considered this seriously, his steps never faltering as he thought. "No," he said finally. "Public actions deserve public consequences. She chose to try to ruin a moment that was meant to be witnessed by everyone who loves us. There's a certain poetry in her being held accountable in the same space." "That's surprisingly philosophical," I noted, impressed. "I contain multitudes," he quipped, then grew serious again. "Besides, you gave her the chance to admit it and apologize. She chose to double down with lies instead." I nodded, resting my head against his shoulder as we swayed. He was right. I had exposed Sophia's actions, but I hadn't sought to humiliate her beyond what her own behavior warranted. The distinction felt important. As the evening progressed, I found myself approached by various family members and friends, each with their own take on what had transpired. Marcus's mother hugged me tightly, whispering, "You handled that with such grace, dear. Welcome to the family, though I think you've already proven you can handle anything we might throw at you." My grandmother patted my cheek and said in Farsi, "In my day, we would have put Esfand on the fire to ward off the evil eye. But your way works too." Even some of the extended family from Sophia's side sought me out. Her older brother Armin approached during the dessert service, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Layla, I want to apologize for my sister's behavior," he said formally. "What she did was inexcusable." "Thank you, Armin," I replied, genuinely touched by his gesture. "But you're not responsible for her actions." "No, but I feel I should have seen this coming. The things she said about your wedding, about you," he shook his head. "I dismissed it as normal jealousy. I should have paid more attention." "Perhaps this will be a turning point for her," I suggested, though I wasn't entirely convinced. "Perhaps," he agreed, though his tone suggested similar doubts. "In any case, I hope this doesn't create a permanent rift in the family." "It won't from my side," I assured him. "Family is too important to lose over one bad day, even a wedding day." As Armin moved away, Marcus rejoined me, slipping his arm around my waist. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said, realizing it was true. "Everything is exactly as it should be." The band leader announced it was time for the cake cutting, and we made our way to where our 4-tiered masterpiece stood illuminated by carefully positioned spotlights. As we posed with the cake knife, guests gathering around to watch and photograph the moment, I caught sight of my reflection in one of the decorative mirrors positioned around the reception area. The woman looking back at me was radiant in a dress that wasn't her original choice, but somehow seemed perfect now. Her hair was slightly looser than planned after hours of dancing, giving her a more relaxed, joyful appearance. Her eyes were bright with happiness that came not from having a perfect day, but from navigating an imperfect one with strength and grace. As Marcus and I cut into the cake together, our hands joined on the silver knife, cheers erupted around us. We fed each other small bites, managing to avoid the traditional smearing that often accompanies this ritual. We had both agreed that ruining perfectly good cake was a waste, especially cake this expensive. To us, Marcus whispered, pressing his forehead against mine for a moment, and to back up plans that turn out better than the originals. To us, I agreed, kissing him softly as camera flashes captured the moment. And to a marriage where we face everything, good and bad, together. Later, as we prepared to depart for our hotel before tomorrow's flight to Greece for our honeymoon, my mother helped me change into my going-away outfit in the bridal suite. The ruined dress still hung there, a reminder of how differently this day could have gone. "Should we take it?" my mother asked, gesturing to the stained gown. "Perhaps a specialist cleaner could salvage something." I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, let's donate it. Someone with alteration skills could rework it, remove the stained sections, create something new." My mother smiled approvingly, always finding the path forward, my Layla. As we walked out to where Marcus waited by the vintage car decorated with flowers and ribbons, guests lined up to shower us with rose petals, I felt a profound sense of completion. Not because the day had been perfect, it decidedly hadn't been, but because it had been real. We had faced a challenge and emerged stronger, setting the tone for our marriage in a way that no smooth-sailing, picture-perfect wedding could have. Marcus helped me into the car, then slid in beside me. As we pulled away from Rosewood Gardens, the sounds of celebration fading behind us, he took my hand and kissed it. "So," he said with a grin, "should I be checking our honeymoon suite for security cameras, just in case?" I laughed, leaning my head against his shoulder. "No need. I think we've had enough drama to last us at least until our first anniversary." "Promise?" "No promises," I replied, smiling up at him. "But I do promise that whatever comes our way, we'll handle it together, with evidence, backup plans, and maybe just a touch of public justice when necessary." He laughed, pulling me closer as the car carried us away from our wedding day and toward our future. A future built not on the illusion of perfection, but on the solid foundation of truth, preparation, and the kind of love that stands strong even when wedding dresses don't. "Happy anniversary, my love," Marcus said, raising his glass of champagne across our candlelit table at Maison Laurent, the same restaurant where he had proposed 2 years earlier. The soft lighting caught the bubbles in our glasses, creating tiny constellations between us. "Happy anniversary," I replied, clinking my glass against his. "To surviving our first year of marriage, which was considerably less dramatic than our wedding day, thankfully." Marcus laughed, the sound still making my heart skip after all this time. "I don't know, that plumbing disaster in February was pretty epic. 3 inches of water in the kitchen, and you just calmly started moving furniture while on a work call." "All part of my contingency planning nature," I said with a wink. "Though I'll admit, I didn't have bathtub overflows during virtual presentation to clients on my disaster bingo card." We fell into comfortable conversation as we enjoyed our anniversary dinner, reminiscing about highlights from our first year of marriage. Our honeymoon in Greece, where we'd island hopped for 2 weeks, deliberately disconnected from family drama. The holidays, which we'd navigated with diplomatic skill, splitting time between traditions and families. The small garden we'd planted together in the spring, Marcus learning Persian vegetable varieties alongside American staples. "Have you heard from Sophia recently?" Marcus asked as our dessert arrived, a chocolate soufflé we'd ordered to share, just as we had on the night of our engagement. I nodded, taking a small bite of the decadent dessert. "Actually, yes, she sent me an email last week." Marcus raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You didn't mention it." "I was processing," I admitted. "It was unexpected." After the wedding, Sophia had disappeared from family gatherings for 6 months. According to my mother, who maintained contact with Aunt Layla, Sophia had been required to attend therapy as a condition of remaining in the family home. Uncle Darius, normally indulgent with his only daughter, had been unusually firm about this requirement. "She apologized," I continued, stirring my spoon through the soufflé. "Really apologized, not just the performative kind she's done in the past." "What did she say?" Marcus asked, his expression a mixture of curiosity and protective concern. "She wrote that therapy helped her recognize patterns in her behavior going back to childhood, how she'd always measured herself against me and found herself wanting. How that transformed into resentment and eventually active sabotage. I paused, remembering the carefully worded email. She said ruining my dress was the lowest point in her life, not getting caught, but realizing as she did it that she had become someone she didn't recognize or like. That's surprisingly insightful, Marcus said cautiously. I thought so too. She also said she doesn't expect forgiveness or for things to go back to how they were when we were children. She just wanted me to know she's working on herself. Do you believe her? He asked, always cutting to the heart of the matter. I considered the question seriously. I think I do. The email wasn't dramatic or attention-seeking. She didn't ask for anything from me, not even a response. It felt genuine. Marcus nodded slowly. And did you respond? Yes, yesterday. I thanked her for the apology and told her I appreciated her taking responsibility. I said maybe we could meet for coffee sometime in a neutral location to talk more. Very diplomatic, he said with a small smile. Very Layla. Is that a good thing? I asked, suddenly uncertain. He reached across the table to take my hand. It's a wonderful thing. Your capacity for measured forgiveness without naivety is one of the many reasons I love you. You're not rushing to pretend nothing happened, but you're leaving the door open for growth and change. I squeezed his hand, grateful for his understanding. It's strange, but in a way, I'm almost thankful for what happened at our wedding. Thankful, he repeated, surprised. Not for the act itself, I clarified, but for what it revealed and what came after. It forced a family issue that had been simmering for years into the open where it could finally be addressed. It showed me who would stand by us when things got difficult, and it started our marriage with the understanding that we can handle challenges together. When you put it that way, Marcus said thoughtfully, I can see your point. We didn't get the perfect wedding day, but maybe we got the perfect wedding day for us. Exactly, I agreed. Plus, I looked amazing in that backup dress. He laughed. That you did. I still maintain it was better than the original. You never even saw the original on me, I pointed out. Irrelevant. You were radiant in Plan B, and nothing could have improved on that. As we finished our dessert and prepared to leave, Marcus grew slightly nervous, fidgeting with something in his jacket pocket. I have something for you, he said, an anniversary gift. I thought we agreed to exchange gifts at home, I said, curious about his sudden change in demeanor. This one felt right for the moment, he explained, pulling out a small velvet box. It's not jewelry, he added quickly, seeing my expression. I opened the box to find a delicate silver key. What's this for? I asked, turning it over in my fingers. It's symbolic, he said, his eyes warm. I've been thinking about what you said about contingency plans and backup options, about how sometimes Plan B turns out better than the original. I waited, sensing there was more to this gift than just the key. I've set up a special account, he continued. For our future children's education, yes, but also for emergencies, opportunities, and the unexpected detours life will inevitably throw at us. The key doesn't open anything physical. It's a reminder that we're building security together, preparing for whatever comes while still leaving room for spontaneity and joy. Tears pricked at my eyes as I closed my fingers around the key. It was perhaps the most thoughtful gift anyone had ever given me, an acknowledgement of who I was at my core, my need for preparation transformed into something beautiful rather than treated as an anxiety to overcome. I love it, I whispered, and I love you for understanding me so completely. Always, he promised, leaning across the table to kiss me softly. As we left the restaurant, stepping into the cool evening air hand in hand, I felt a sense of profound gratitude. 1 year ago, I had walked down the aisle in a dress I hadn't planned to wear, facing a challenge I hadn't anticipated. Today, I walked confidently beside my husband, carrying a symbolic key to a future we would build together, one that would certainly include challenges, possibly even betrayals, but also joy, growth, and the kind of love that plans for the worst while expecting the best. So, Marcus said as we walked to our car, do you want to know what Sophia said when she responded to your coffee invitation? I stopped staring at him. You knew about that. She copied me on the email, he admitted. Said she wanted me to know she was serious about making amends and understood that we come as a package deal now. And you didn't tell me, I asked, more curious than upset. I wanted to see if you would bring it up yourself without prompting. It felt like an important test of where your head was at with the whole situation. I shook my head, smiling despite myself. Always the psychologist, so what did she say? She suggested that Persian tea house that just opened downtown. Said maybe we could start a new tradition, quarterly cousin tea dates to rebuild slowly. He paused, watching my reaction carefully. She also mentioned she's been accepted to a graduate program in family counseling. Apparently, her own therapy experience inspired a career change. Wow, I said, genuinely surprised. That's actually perfect for her. She always was insightful about other people's motivations, even if she struggled with her own. So, will you go? He asked as we reached our car. I thought about it as he opened my door. Yes, I think I will, with appropriate boundaries and expectations, of course. Of course, he agreed with a smile. I wouldn't expect anything less from my beautifully prepared wife. As we drove home through the city, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. The wedding day drama that had seemed so catastrophic in the moment had ultimately been just one day in a lifetime we were building together. The backup dress, the security footage, the public revelation, all of it had served its purpose, clearing the air and setting boundaries that perhaps should have been established long ago. But the real victory wasn't in the perfect execution of a contingency plan. It was in what came after: the strength of our partnership, the growth that came from challenge, and the wisdom to know when to hold firm and when to open the door to second chances. What are you thinking about? Marcus asked as we pulled into our driveway, our home glowing warmly in the evening light. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that sometimes the best plan is the one you don't know you need until life forces your hand. Very philosophical, he teased, echoing my words from our wedding reception. I contain multitudes, I replied with a smile, completing the callback. As we walked to our front door, arms around each other, I felt the weight of the silver key in my pocket. A symbol of preparation, yes, but also of trust in our ability to handle whatever came our way. Together, we had transformed a wedding day disaster into the foundation of a marriage stronger than either of us could have planned. And really, what better contingency plan could there be than that?
Layla, thank you for sharing your story with us today. What you experienced was truly painful, but your response reveals a powerful truth. When you document toxic behavior and prepare for sabotage, you transform from victim to architect of your own justice. This isn't about revenge. It's about creating consequences through irrefutable evidence and strategic preparation. Your backup dress became the symbol of your resilience, and your husband's presentation ensured the truth was witnessed by everyone who mattered. I'm Eliza Quinn, and remember, here on Wedding Day Justice, veils off, justice on.